So this is sort of the, I guess you could call it part 3 of 3 of me creating an electro rock track. If you missed the first 2 sessions that I put up, the first one was just a live broadcast of me jamming out guitar riffs. The second one was when I was starting to put a little bit of structure to the track, kind of filling out the verse, the build-up, and then the choruses. And this final one is basically when I've extended the entire track out. And I've added a couple of new melodic elements. I've added some leads here and there. I've added some changes and adjustments between the various parts so that I'm not repeating the same thing over and over again, giving my library, giving the music supervisor lots and lots of options. Obviously, I want to get right to the point. I want to deliver and promise something really intense, or at least something very specific, right? So whatever you're going to be composing, you got to give them like within a couple of seconds, this is what you're about to get, and then deliver it to them, all right? And then, of course, along the way, add dynamics, add interest, add new elements as you progress through the track so that it doesn't get boring, it doesn't get stale. It adds, it captures your attention and makes you want to stay tuned, right? That's really what this, the name of the game is when you want to get some licensable tracks out there into the system. So if you guys remember, I had my verse section, which is basically this. I had a build-up section, which is this right here. And then my chorus is sort of all this insanity that's right on this section. Now, as you can see, pretty much all I've done is I've taken all of this, copied and pasted it all over, but there are new elements now being included, and I've kind of treated this build up a little bit differently than this one, and then there's a lot of new things going on in this last chorus just to beef it up and make it more intense than the first chorus. So this isn't like rocket science in terms of you don't have to like craft 3 new sections to make it work. You can literally copy and paste stuff over, but unlike what you've probably been doing before you got into TV film licensing, you were probably just making beats for rappers or artists or singers, and so you just copied and pasted a verse or a chorus. You got to make sure that you're taking care of adding those elements of interest along the way in your track. So that's just one of those things you just have to just get in the habit of doing every time you compose. The more you do it, the easier and more intuitive it'll feel. In the beginning, it might just seem weird. You won't know really how to add things and make it sound interesting or dynamic, but it'll get easier, trust me. So I have this intro here, and as you see, once we zoom in a little bit more, you'll see that these guitars, these are my guitars, these orange ones, they are so heavily edited. Almost every single part had some edits and stuff. Of course, once I got like the riff down, and if it repeated, I think this was like an 8-bar riff. I just basically copied and pasted it over, but I did do a couple of new things on this one that I didn't do on that one. So I did add interest and variations along the way just to make sure that there's a lot of cool stuff happening and I'm not getting into that loopy feeling. But let's just go ahead and start. Here's how the track begins. Okay, so not a long dragging intro, not a long fade in. It's just immediately into this kind of buildup with some breakbeat drums, intense fast drums, and sort of a EQ filtered guitar. So right off the bat, if a supervisor or an editor or somebody's looking for anything like this, within 1 second, they know this might be what they're looking for. If they're looking for some intense aggression, testosterone, whatever it is, maybe for a NASCAR race or a promo or something like that, they click play. They got to the point right away, okay? They didn't have to sit and wait 3 to 5 seconds to find out, okay, what's this track really about? Some of you guys are composing tracks and I don't really know what's going on within the first 3 to 5 seconds, and time is money. When it comes to a supervisor choosing your track, they need to know like immediately what they're getting out of your track. That's probably the best way to make sure they don't just hit next. Even though your track might be the best one, if they don't have a lot of time and they got to find something real quick, which there are, you guys have deadlines in this business, guess what? So do music supervisors, so do editors. Sometimes they just got to crank out something super fast to get it to their supervisor to make sure, or the director or the producer to make sure that it can be approved. So you don't want to be sat on or passed over just because you didn't get right to the point within a couple of seconds. So let's move on with the, this is kind of the first verse section. So before we go into this breakdown section, obviously The main difference here between the first section and second section is I added this sort of hard style lead that just sort of mimics those harmonics that the guitar is doing. Da, 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 boom. So it just adds a little bit more of that electro stuttery feeling, and I have a lot of stutter stuff going on with this. I don't know if you can see this actually here. Well, I can't show it with this, but you can see down here, down here, wrong file. But if I zoom in actually a little bit, there you go. You can kind of see it on the bottom. So there's a lot of stutters going on, and I'm cutting this out. So it's kind of cool how that sound and the electronic guitars interact with each other and stutter together. So you kind of get this hybrid sound that's a little bit unique. And definitely when it comes to creating hybrid tracks and stacking things together, guitars and synths really can work together, but you got to do a little bit of finessing. So here's a little build-up part. Basically just a whole bunch of EQ filtering happening, automation, to kind of build us up into this chorus. So take a listen. So, you know, pretty standard riff there. Just kind of now what's different from the chorus than the verse is very stuttery and very rhythmic and almost percussive. Right? Very staccato. Da 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 da. And then when the chorus comes, it's just chords, right? Ringing out. And then I did add this very subtle lead guitar. This is a synth, though. This is a fake guitar. But I did put this nice little subtle lead on top of all these guitars just to add a little bit more depth to the top. Again, this lead is nothing special. It's just kind of rhythmic and it's following what's going on with these leads. So everything's kind of singing together, right? A lot of times some producers, when their track isn't feeling full enough, they start adding new leads and elements. And so there's like 3 or 4 different things happening. And so it starts sounding really messy. You can have all of your synths and guitars and samples kind of following the same progression. I mean, it's slightly different. Obviously, this is playing all the same note as it just kind of wanders, the high guitar lead that I have, and this one has the octave, dan-do-do. So, but they're in the same key, they're playing the same rhythm, basically the same notes, right? So they're kind of singing together, but that just adds a little bit more depth and just beef, basically, to your track. So let's go on to the second verse. Obviously, the main difference here, it is only half as long. I didn't feel like I needed to have this whole thing. I just added this new little lead that wasn't there before, so you can take a listen. So as you can see, nothing special. It's just an arpeggiated synth lead that I put there together, just to add a little bit more melodic movement that the first verse didn't have. So if they want something a little bit more melodic moving, they can throw that in there. Obviously, if you notice, I treated the EQ fadings differently on this second build-up. The first one is much more in the high register that kind of slowly reveals the low end. This one, we take out all the high end and slowly reveal the high end. So check it out. This is how the first one started. Okay, and this is how the second one starts. Again, a super simple variation. Why? Well, we already gave them this. Unless I want to maybe add new melodic instruments to this or try something else, I felt like, what's the point of giving them another buildup that they already have? They can loop that buildup again if they want. So I decided, hey, maybe they want something that's a little bit more subdued. This one kind of has a little bit more of a relaxed, chill start in the beginning. It's not as tense. It's really mellow. It's really down there in the low frequencies, and then it comes up. This one starts off a little more tense because it has those high frequencies. So just giving them, again, a couple of choices to go with. And then we start this last chorus. Of course, we want to make it bigger than the previous chorus. So the first thing you'll hear is I ended up using the same lead sound and just threw something on the top of the chorus. Realize you probably can't see what I'm looking at. Let me just move this over for you. Okay, so yeah, we have this pretty epic ending here. So we have obviously the lead that comes back. You heard this lead before, that was on the first chorus, but obviously now we have these haze, right? This came from actually from Splice, really cool sound sample. Threw a little bit of reverb on it, but nothing special, just looping those over and over again. And of course we have the new lead that we started, and that's pretty much it. Now a lot of times producers will just sort of like get to the end of their last chorus and then bam, and have like a root note, which I'll be honest, sometimes I do as well. I get a little lazy and I'm like, but bam, all right, cool, that's done. But it does make a big difference to give them a little bit more on your ending sting, because first of all, yes, for when you deliver your alt mixes, you will deliver a sting version, and having something that's a little bit more crafted like a sting is going to be a much more impactful delivery for them. So it sounds more like a sting rather than just like you bounce the end of your chorus into the last last note. So this one's going to give you a little bit more, probably some more placement potential by giving them an actual sting ending. And it just makes the track feel like this big epic ending, and it sounds much more professional and much more impactful to give a little bit more thought to your ending. And it's not much, as you'll hear when I do this. I should have put some fade outs on those ones, but all I did is ended up actually just repeating one part of the chorus, and the drums just down, bam, 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 and then a drum fill, and that's it. So, you know, I could have just had this like last hit right here, start right here, but I wanted to give a little bit more to the ending. So here's how it sounds. And then I do recommend this if you're recording some guitars. I end up using a slowdown effect, actually. I don't know if you could see it because it's actually orange on orange, which is really hard to see. I'll recolor these so you can see them. Let's see. Get these like, what's easier to see? That's not easier. That's not easier. Anyways, you can kind of see that the... yeah, it's not really going to make it easier to see. But essentially, you know, in Logic Pro 10, you can either decide when you do these things, you can make it a fade or a slowdown. And so I made it a slowdown, and that makes this kind of like tape effect. Which, if you recorded your guitars, it's probably better just to do it like, just record the guitar playing that last note. I didn't record that. I didn't want to pull out the guitar and do another last note. So I decided just to actually do this kind of as an effect. And I like the way it sounded. So it just kind of had this nice growl at the end, just like a little slowdown. So, you know, just tiny little things make a big difference just to make sure you have this sort of epic feeling to the end of your track, especially in rock. It's like a really popular thing to do. So that's it, guys. That is my electro rock track. I'm definitely going to get started on probably another one. Maybe I'll do 2 or 3 of these. We'll see. This one's obviously taking a couple of days here and there because I've been doing a bunch of other things. I have other projects I'm working on, but just wanted to give you guys sort of the complete vision of where it started, right? You guys saw my live broadcast of me just jamming stuff out, and then when I had my sort of rough skeleton, and then now you can see sort of where the final pieces are with mastering plugins enabled and all that kind of stuff. So you guys have seen the entire metamorphosis of how this stuff comes together. So hope you enjoy.